Welcome back for another episode of Russia Up Close. I'm Joe.
I'm Eddie.
Great to have you back here for episode 3. So we have some interesting guests for this episode as well, several more well-known people. But let's just talk a little bit about what's going on. I guess what happened last week?
There was Thanksgiving.
That's right.
This past Thursday. So happy Thanksgiving, a belated Thanksgiving to those of you in America who celebrated. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving with family and friends.
So let's get to it. This sounds like we got some interesting news that it's in the funnel. It sounds like there's some sort of plans.
28
points.
Peace plan.
I think you're going to talk about that, aren't you?
I think I might talk about that a little later. Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
It'll
coming up. Steve Witkoff is going to be in Russia this week, or is in Russia this week. Viktor Orban will be here also at the same time. 2 different reasons, but hopefully things are going in better directions. It sounds like Steve is here to talk about said plan, and Viktor is here to finally have the discussions about energy that he's been so very intent on having now that he got permissions from the Grand Poobah to not get sanctioned and make a deal with Russia for energy. But also at the same time, we have not so good news, of course. Trump recently just stated that the ground operations are going to start in Venezuela soon. And it is continually impressive to me how people think that this is a drug cartel war. Just about anything but.
Yeah, it's far from it, and I'm glad you brought that up, because coming up there'll be a very interesting conversation about that particular topic that you won't want to miss. That's
for sure. Stay tuned to that. But I do want to just, make this as from a warning perspective. Again, I'm not exactly sure what the everyday American is supposed to do about these things, because clearly we just have politicians just telling us how it's going to be. There's really not a whole lot of input from we the people, so to speak. And that's just how it is. We're going to go have another war in another part of the world. And nobody seems to be that terribly concerned about it. I don't think that people realize the stakeholders that exist on both sides of this as it turns into a conflict.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we talked about this, I think, in our first episode that, America seems to have this obsession with war. War on this, war on poverty, war on drugs is another big one. So how long has the war on drugs been going on? And where is that war being fought? Is it being fought on American soil, or is it being fought out of the country? That's something that politicians will never tell you. They'll never come out and exactly explain how this war is being conducted, who are the stakeholders, by what do we measure whether we're winning this war or not. So speaking of holidays, and in America, they just celebrated Thanksgiving Day this past Thursday, and just yesterday, Sunday, here in Russia, it was Mother's Day. So to our Russian viewers and mothers and grandmothers across Russia and Russian-speaking audience, from our hearts to you, we say, Поздравляю с Днем Матери.
Поздравляю с Днем Матери. So our first guest is extraordinarily interesting. He is a journalist with a great sense of humor, Chris Helali, also a host on DD Geopolitics. He actually has a Persian and Greek heritage, but he was born in America, served in the United States military, and also went on to serve in other militaries as well. He's an extraordinarily colorful character, as you will find if you research him on the internet, but I will let him introduce himself to you. We will discuss three major topics. The first will be about Venezuela, and then the second will be about his recent experience. And last but not least, his contribution to the Epstein investigation by providing new evidence to the investigation in the form of another black book. As I understand, he's to be interviewed by Congress on this very topic very soon. With no further ado, Chris Helali. Here we are with the famed journalist, Chris Helali, host of DD Geopolitics, member of the International Federation of Journalists, and a geopolitical analyst, and one of the most well-traveled gentlemen that I have ever met. Chris Helali, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. Likewise. Look, Chris, it's amazing to me because it seems that whenever we're checking your whereabouts, you're on a different side of hemispheres. You're all over the place. You're in Russia one day. You're in Venezuela the next. How do you do it?
Thank goodness that, I have some decent stamina because it takes a lot. I just got back from Brazil from COP30, where I was with the Iranian delegation, and it was 80 hours round trip, just the travel part.
Oh, my
So it was a lot, but we are still young and ready to do it. So
Fantastic.
We're out there.
Fantastic. Let's
I'm ready.
Start with what the hell is going on in Venezuela. We heard Trump's version of it, but you met Maduro yourself?
Yep.
From their perspective, from his perspective, what is going on?
Listen, Venezuela has always been at the center of the sort of bullseye of the United States. We know, of course, in the 20th century, up until 1990s, late 1990s, the United States was tremendously influential in Venezuela. And you might ask, why? Venezuela is a large country in South America, has a lot of resources. It's very much rich in natural resources, very good agricultural land. But more importantly, as we know today, it sits on the largest reserve of oil in the entire world. That's more oil than Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Iran, Russia, and many other countries, including the United States. So Venezuela hit the jackpot as a nation because it has this tremendous natural resource. What we're seeing is a country that has not, we have in our popular conception, Venezuela is a communist dictatorship. But actually, Venezuela doesn't even arrest its opposition. I mean, you have opposition people just running around the country and saying what they want and posting what they want and having opposition media. This is not For example, the DPRK that has firm control over its borders, over its, over the information flow because it's under siege and now a nuclear power. Venezuela is a very open society. You can openly criticize the government without anybody knocking on your door. That has tremendous positives. The negative, of course, is that all in this time period, the United States and other powers have fueled the opposition, have funded them, armed them, provided them all the resources to be able to topple the government. Of course, they've been unsuccessful, although they got pretty close. In 2019, when I went for the first time to Venezuela, during the first Trump administration, when the ghouls of the neocons like Elliot Abrams and John Bolton and Mike Pompeo were all milling around the White House trying to overthrow President Maduro's government, the Venezuelan people stopped multiple attempts at the overthrow and were able to be firm in the Bolivarian Revolution. Of course, the United States, recognizing that politically they couldn't do this, they tried then economically, which is this economic coercion. We know it as sanctions and all these tools that are used by the United States and by other countries, including the United Kingdom, which stole billions of dollars worth of Venezuelan gold and basically locked it up so they couldn't access it. I mean, if you think about this is modern day piracy.
Yes.
So one of the important aspects was, okay, we can't defeat them politically. Let's try economically. Of course, Venezuela has been able to withstand a lot of that by relying on the help of the Russian Federation, of China, and many other countries in the global south, where they have good relations and good ties and have been able to weather that storm. So you've tried a political solution and not been successful. You've tried an economic solution. Well, the last option available is a military solution. And so now we see the deployment of various carriers, of a carrier strike group, of an enormous amount of personnel and military aircraft, not to mention the naval assets that are in the Caribbean. And now the fear is we are on the precipice of a military regime change operation. But when I was able to meet with President Maduro just a few weeks ago, one of the things that was stressed to the group of us who were there was Venezuelans will fight. And they have fought in history. We remember, of course, the Venezuelan people, along with the people in Colombia, neighboring Colombia, in Bolivia, in many other countries, they were able to successfully overthrow the Spanish colonial elite. And they were able to rid themselves of Spanish colonialism and to develop and basically become a sovereign independent state. At first it was Gran Colombia, then it was Venezuela and Colombia, and many other states that emerged, including Panama, Bolivia, and others. What that means is they have the spirit of Simón Bolívar. That's why they call it the Bolivarian Republic and the Bolivarian Revolution. So that gives them the strength and the courage to be able to say, we fought one empire before that felt it was invincible. We will fight another one as well.
I don't think that people still have not really grasped that this is not a little deal. I think that we get this impression, again, sitting back in America, that, we're down there to fight some cartels.
I mean, the biggest cartel is in Washington, of course.
Of
and
course.
in Langley.
Of course.
We know the DEA and the CIA.
Yeah.
But of course, beyond that, no, Venezuela is not, drugs aren't even really a big factor in Venezuela at all. It's even on the statistics that are recognized by the U.S. government, it's a very minuscule amount. The problem is that it's a great cover story for going and doing regime change. Oh, the president, he's the leader of the biggest cartel. What cartel? What cartel? And you're not even going to do anything in Mexico, which is neighboring? You're not even going to do anything. That's why it's not serious. It's not serious. And if they really want to figure out about cartels and they really want to address the drug issue, well, there's the supply issue, but there's also the consumption issue. So if your country is net importing all of these drugs, there must be a demand for those drugs. And that shows the deep societal rot that is in the United States itself, which demands all of these drugs to come in to provide all the services that they provide to the people. But Maduro said, we want peace. But if you come, we're going to make a second Vietnam for you. And they will. Because let me tell you one thing. It's mountainous. It's a jungle environment. This is not Iraq or Afghanistan, mountains and desert. This is a jungle environment, and the people know their land. And the people will fight. Not to mention, there have been a lot of peace agreements in Latin America over the past decade that have disarmed a lot of left-wing militant organizations, including the FARC. We remember the FARC was, but a lot of FARC members live in Venezuela to the tune of thousands. So U.S. wants to invade on the ground, You're going to have an insurgency once again, and it's not going to be a peaceful situation. So I just want people to understand that Venezuela wants to be independent. It's up to the Venezuelan people to decide their destiny. And for the U.S. to then go in and start bombing or invading and trying to overthrow that government, it won't be successful. Again, it's not Libya, it's not Iraq. And even in those countries, the U.S. was not successful.
Yeah.
Don't bother us.
Yeah.
We can
Absolutely
live together. And that will solve a lot of problems. If you respect Latin America, if you have win-win diplomacy and win-win economic development, you won't have an immigration crisis because people are happy where they are. People love their countries. Sure, people move, but a lot of that movement is also economic. It's also driven by the wars, the chaos, the sanctions, the economic situation that is created by these little banana republics that are bought and paid for by the U.S. and the corporations.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
What are things like on the ground with regards to family values, Venezuela? Like, how's the LGBT doing down there in Venezuela, as an example?
Listen, Venezuelan society is an open society, and it's culturally, they don't bother people. They exist, of course.
Yeah.
LGBTQ people exist and things, but Venezuela is a deeply conservative society, historically. It's very conservative, the majority of Christian, right? Also has 2 million Arabs who live there of Arab heritage.
Arabs?
Yeah, of course.
Really?
Lebanese, Syrian, Palestinian, a lot. 2 million Venezuelan Arabs.
Wow.
So you have mosques, you have people with hijab, you have people who are very devout in their own traditions, be they Orthodox Christians, Maronite, Melkite, Druze, and also Muslims, of course. A huge population of Muslims, beautiful mosque that they built. People are generally it's not propagandized. It's not an issue. If people want to live their own way, no problem. But it's very much about family, mama, papa, all this stuff. It's very much like that in that society. And people are conservative in that way. So it's very much like the U.S. in many ways, in terms of a state that's more conservative. That's how Venezuela is. Of course, Venezuela, tropical environment, people are more open, short skirts, all this stuff, wearing, kind of clothing that's around the Caribbean. But generally, people's mindsets are much more oriented towards families, big family gatherings. All that's very important. And you see President Maduro always with the family members and basically sees the country as one family. And that's how the movement has gained so much power and strength, is really focusing on these families and providing a lot of services and a lot of needs for families. And that's a great thing, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah. Has Maduro enunciated, did he ever enunciate, I'm not asking you to speak for him, but has he ever enunciated in any kind of open style what he was interested in negotiating with the United States?
Listen, I spoke with also with Alex Saab, who was a political prisoner in the U.S. and is now a minister of investment in Venezuela. And he said, look, we're speaking with the Americans. We're talking about joint cooperation economically. The problem is the Americans want more. And they keep wanting more and more and more. And Venezuela's like, look, there's a balance here. We want to win, you want to win. We can find an accommodation for that. But if you want a winner take all, then it's not going to work. And that's the problem, is that the U.S. goes into these negotiations to say Venezuela is a small, insignificant country, winner take all. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. And now here we are at the military option, the last one.
Right to the end.
Right to the end.
How did you get into this line of work, Chris?
So for me, I mean, I've been a long time activist, involved. I come from a very political family. Active in terms of anti-war, was very much against the Iraq war. That's when I first met George Galloway. Of course, I wrote him a letter in high school.
Okay,
so I was
wow.
very much involved at that time. And for me, journalism was a great way to basically go to the places that I was already going to and to speaking the truth. Basically interview the people and get the stories. And I love stories. I'm a trained anthropologist, ethnographer. So I love hearing people. I could sit and talk to people for days and hear their stories and get to understand them better and get to understand their experiences better. And so for me, journalism is really about the human element. It's about the human dimension. It's about revealing to an audience who doesn't have access, who doesn't have the luxury to travel, as you rightfully pointed out earlier. If you don't have the luxury to travel, then you rely on people who can travel and who have the opportunities to bring you stories and narratives that you normally don't hear. And so that really was inspiring for me. And that's really what led me into journalism. And I enjoy investigating. I enjoy research. I come from that kind of academic background. So journalism really provides a home for that. I think that this has further hardened me and my resolve to continue to bring the truth And like I said, I've been part of great investigations, including the Jeffrey Epstein case. And
Yes.
so that has been very important to me, and that has helped to further cement the importance of going after the elite, even if it comes at a personal cost.
Again, referring to memory rot in the United States, but there was a book that you did find.
Yes.
That has something that's very relevant in it today. Can you tell us about how you came across this book?
Sure, of course. So, like I said, I enjoy research.
Yes.
I'm very much involved in that space. So, of course, I spend my nights combing the internet because the internet is like a treasure hunt. I messaged the person, and I asked them, "So, tell me about the book. Where did it come from?" They started to give me the whole big story, and I was shocked by it. I said, "Wow, what a story!" I believed it. I said, wow, because the timeline was different. The book that we had that Nick Bryan released via Gawker was 2000 and after. It was in that time frame. This book was claimed to have been found in the mid-90s. So I said, this is another book then. Either it's an elaborate forgery or it's the real deal. So, of course, you know me, bazaar style, I negotiated a lower price, you know. I said, okay, I'll take the risk, even though my wife at the time would probably hang me, and she was extremely upset that I spent this kind of money on this supposed book. Who knows what it is?
Right.
So I spent $400 plus I think it was $25 express shipping.
Okay.
And I said, send it to me. Signature verified. So it came to my local post office, ran there, put on gloves, a mask, everything. It was November, December 2020. So I went to the post office, I opened it up in my car, and the minute I opened the book, I knew it was real.
Really?
We got it analyzed through a great forensic team, and it was analyzed, and it was correct for that time period,
Wow.
mid-1990s. So we started to call the numbers in the book. Some of the numbers still work.
Oh my.
Oh, yeah?
Oh my.
And so we had now in our possession 200 more names that were related to Epstein than were known to the public.
So, for example.
For example, we know John Katsimatidis. We were able to talk with him. John Katsimatidis is a billionaire. He's a Greek billionaire, very close to Trump, lives in New York. And through talking with him, he said, yeah, I knew Epstein. I took him on my private plane, and he needed a ride, and he gave me a 4-foot-high bottle of champagne. So now we confirmed, and we further confirmed, and we further confirmed. So there's a lot. There's a lot that this book has been able to bring about. And I'm honored that I was able to bring it to light. The woman who had it, Denise Ondeko, she basically told me, she said, nobody believed me. You were the only one who believed me.
Wow. Chris, I have to ask you one last question before we leave here. You've been all over the world. You've had so many amazing experiences. You've spoken to so many people from different countries. You've seen the politicians, you've seen the people. But if you're talking directly to Americans, we always are looking for the solution, right? There are the people who are just like, I'm out. Like,
Yep.
I just got to survive. Every man for himself. You know, there's that path. And I'm not saying that's an unreasonable one, because I really actually don't know what the solution is.
Right.
Right. I mean, we could imagine what the solution was if you could actually get politicians that were actually concerned with, like, the survivability of humanity and, you know, that sort of thing. But is there anything that's truly practical advice that you could give to an American specifically to do in their own country? I mean, like, not phone a friend, phone a congressman. Like, what can the average everyday person, or is there nothing really that can be done?
The first level is you got to know the truth.
Yes.
Then the next thing is, how do you act upon that truth? How do you bring that into real life and into some sort of tangible result? The tangible result, I believe, is we need a transformation in the political system. We need a transformation in our daily lives. We need a transformation in the culture, in the economy, in the society at large. And for me, that comes with the idea, number one, that we need political leaders, we need political powers that are for peace, that advocate for a new world, that have a vision of a new world. I'm talking FDR style, Henry Wallace style. I'm talking about a whole new mentality for our relations with Russia, with China, with the rest of the world. I think that we need to rethink a lot of our relationships. We need to rethink our relationship with Israel. We need to rethink our relationship with the European Union and with the UK. We need to rethink our relationship, of course, with Russia, China, and these other countries. And we need to basically say, look, If we want to take care of Americans, then the best way to take care of Americans is to continue on the path of peace and economic prosperity, which means a lot of that money for the military should be reinvested. Why is it that in China you can travel everywhere by high-speed rail, and in the US you can travel nowhere with high-speed rail virtually?
Yeah.
Why is it that you can have all of these amazing advances, and in the US we have crumbling infrastructure? So the average American is waking up to this, and like we said, they have access now to information. They need to then get involved. They cannot just be passive, oh, politics is too big for me. No, get involved, even at the local level. Get involved, speak to people, share information, because when you know the truth now, say, for example, you watch Tucker Carlson, say, wow, I didn't know this. Share that information with others. Start to talk about it. I know, you and I both know, in average American culture, it's taboo to talk about politics, religion, and other topics. They're
Yes,
off limits.
Absolutely.
In my family, it was the opposite.
Okay.
It was taboo to talk about everything else but politics and religion.
Yes.
So I think that we need to mainstream that. We need to get involved. We need to have these kind of difficult conversations as a society because they happen in many other countries normally.
Yeah.
They're just normal every day. People talk
Yes.
about this stuff. We need to do that. And people need to advocate for a better and more dignified life for themselves. And that means more investment in our families, more investment in the country, and less investment in war.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, Chris. Really enjoyed talking with you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to coming back again.
Make sure to check Chris Helali out on DD Geopolitics on X and on YouTube.
Yes.
Thanks you very much.
Thank you very much.
Chris Helali is a wealth of information. You should definitely check him out on DD Geopolitics. But he's an extraordinarily erudite and intelligent person. He has a lot of things to say, tremendous sense of humor, and I really enjoyed discussing these topics with him. They are serious topics at this point in history. It feels like we're about to turn a new chapter, a new page in this history that we're going through right now. It seems that the pressure is mounting in some places and maybe, perhaps, hopefully, lessening in others. But time will tell what the future holds in this regard. I highly encourage you to continue to investigate and look at the truth behind these realities on the ground. There's a lot of information there. There's a lot of perspectives there. And it's worth looking into. And these truths need to be shared with more and more people every day for greater awareness. Up next, I'll Tell You What with Eddie Gonzalez.
Boy, I'll tell you what, the United States just rolled out a 28-point peace plan for Ukraine before anyone agreed there was even going to be peace. And then this week, at the Geneva meetings, the whole thing had to be reworked. Not amended, reworked. That tells you everything. Now imagine building a house without a foundation and then being surprised when it collapses during inspection. That's this peace plan. Washington wrote the blueprint. Kiev pushed back. Europe hesitated. And Russia, why, they weren't even invited to write a single sentence. Yet somehow every sentence concerns Russia. That's not diplomacy. That's dictation. Dictation written on American letterhead. Now, here's where this ties directly to last week's Tucker Carlson revelations. You know, Tucker said the U.S. media isn't just reporting on the war. They're shaping the acceptable opinions about how the war should end. Tucker said the Wall Street Journal is sitting on proof of corruption involving Andrei Yermak, the man effectively negotiating Ukraine's political posture towards peace. Proof of corruption with American tax dollars. And if that's true, you begin to see the larger architecture of how the media buries corruption to protect the war effort. And the policy class writes a peace plan designed for domestic politics, not international stability. Now, those aren't separate stories. Those are threads of the same fabric. So let's slow down and unpack the actual sticking points, because you don't need a map to understand this. You just need some good old common sense. So the first fault line is territory. Now, the plan reportedly demands that Ukraine make concessions reality on the battlefield as already decided. That alone created political shockwaves. The second fault line security guarantees. Now Europe's worried the U.S. is offering promises it won't be around to keep, especially if administrations change, which they will, coming up in 2028. The third fault line, neutrality. Washington wants neutrality defined on its terms, not anyone else's. The fourth fault line, timelines. Washington wants immediate optics. They want to win. Kiev wants survival. Europe wants stability, I think. Russia wants long-term guarantees. Now, those goals aren't aligned, yet Washington wrote a plan pretending they are. Let's go back and talk about this Andrei Yermak character. Again, the same man Tucker claims the media is protecting is reportedly steering Kiev to reject certain terms. Now ask yourself, if the media is protecting key actors and those actors are shaping Kiev's negotiating position, how independent is Ukraine's decision making? And how honest is the narrative that's presented to you, the American public? You know, from here in Moscow, the pattern looks familiar. Washington drafts the script, the media sells it, allies are expected to recite it word for word, and anyone who questions it gets labeled, "You're aligned with Moscow, you're Putin's stooge." That's not diplomacy, that's performance art. And let me tell you something, as a Texan living in Moscow, folks here are not shocked. They've seen this before. They've seen versions of this movie for decades. Now, Washington calls it leadership, the rest of the world calls it pressure. But this time, even Europe is blinking. That tells you the gap between Washington's ambitions and Europe's patience has widened. So let's ask the question Washington doesn't want asked. Who is this plan actually designed to satisfy? Well, it's not Russia. They didn't write it. It's not Ukraine. They're resisting it. It's not Europe. They're skeptical. So who benefits? Well, it's Washington's political class. Washington wants a diplomatic trophy it can hang on a wall. A framed headline, something Trump can point to and say, "See, I ended the war. Took a little more than 100 days, but I got it done. Where's my peace prize?" But a peace plan designed for press conferences instead of reality, that's not peace, that's paperwork. A paper peace. A peace that looks clean on a memo but chaotic on the map is the most dangerous kind of peace because it fools the public, fools you into thinking a conflict is over. It gives politicians a victory lap. But the battlefield doesn't disappear just because Washington drafts a document. And when the real world conditions clash with the fantasy on the page, the war doesn't end. It mutates. So here's what's coming up. More revisions. It's going to be more leaks, more political pressure, more fights between Washington and Europe, and more internal tension inside Kiev. And also more commentary from Moscow. And in the middle of all this, you, the American taxpayer, funding every direction the wind blows. And I'll tell you what, peace doesn't come from a plan written 7,000 miles away. Peace comes from all sides, sitting at the same table and being honest. Honest about territory, honest about security, honest about influence, honest about what's possible. And as long as Washington drafts peace like it drafts policy, unilaterally, the world will keep receiving documents instead of solutions. I'll tell you what, a peace plan written without all the real players isn't peace, it's theater. And the world deserves better than scripted diplomacy performed for television. Real peace takes courage, humility, and everyone at the table. Until then, these peace plans are just press releases waiting for signatures. And that right there, my friends, that's the truth of it. Question you got to ask yourself, does Trump really want this war to end? Until next time, this is Eddie. Well, I'll tell you what.
Thanks, Eddie. Looking forward to the next episode of I'll Tell You What. And now, for our next guest is the lovely Natalia Moskvitina, founder of Women for Life in Russia, a real-life warrior, and a host at Spaz TV. She is fighting for the right to life for children. I had the honor and pleasure of meeting and introducing Natalia Moskvitina to John Henry on his last visit here to Russia. With no further ado, Natalia Moskvitina.
I'm so happy we're meeting again. For me, it's a real joy, especially since we're talking about topics that our hearts are passionate about. My organization is already 10 years old. In fact, it'll be 10 years this February. We're meeting right on the eve of this big celebration. For 10 years, we've been saving Russian women from abortion, and our Russian children are being born. Of course, that can't help but make me happy, even though the path has been quite difficult. Over the last 10 years, 9,200 babies have been born through the foundation. Little girls and boys for whom there was a great struggle. Plus, of course, I really wanted to bring together a community of women who care. That's why the foundation is called Women for Life. That is, women who don't have abortions. There are many such women in Russia, or women who may have had an abortion, but they regret it. That, in general, was my main goal, to bring together a community of women who can help each other, but most importantly, that no matter what a woman is facing, it doesn't follow that she needs to terminate the pregnancy. And thank God we have very good results. We know that the children who were born 10 years ago are already going to school. And you know, it's so wonderful to get text messages from unknown numbers from women who over the years have changed their old SIM cards, and they write, "Natalia, you probably don't remember me, but look at the child you saved from abortion." And that is just pure happiness. It's impossible to measure that with anything else. Thank God the foundation exists. And no matter what difficulties we faced, and the main one, of course, is finding funding, this whole long journey, that has never discouraged me.
Прекрасно. Прекрасно. People will want to know, certainly, who is Natalia Moskvitina? What is your history? Like, introduce us to yourselves like you're talking to a new friend. Can you tell us more about yourself?
And if I were to say who Natalia Moskvina is, I would say a warrior of Christ. For me, that is the most honest description. Everything I do, I give to God. And 9,000 babies. That's probably the result of what I asked God for many years ago, when I sincerely said that I wanted to have a very large, loving, and wonderful family filled with children and joy. I thought I would have 8 children, but in my marriage, I had 4 children, and my dream remained unfulfilled. And when I started helping each individual woman and rejoicing in all these little children as if they were my own, that is what brought me happiness. Now, looking back at the foundation, looking at the results, I realized that it's very important for me to live in the context of my country, Russia. I am Russian, I have Cossack roots. My ancestors were Cossacks for several generations. They were very active, devout people who were genuinely willing to die for Christ. And I'm glad that I am from Volgograd, a city with a remarkable past. That's Stalingrad, which was the turning point in the Second World War, meaning the victory was forged right there. And my grandmother, she recently passed away. She was a little girl, 6 years old, and was a prisoner of the Germans. And as my grandmother's granddaughter, as the daughter of my country, you know, Brodsky has a good phrase that you don't choose your country or your era. That's exactly right. I was born in Russia, so I simply must, by definition, take part in my country's history. Otherwise, what's it all for? And I want our children to be born. What do we do? In the foundation, we fight for every single baby, because my personal story is connected to the fact that my first, second, and third children might not have been born. For me, this is a challenge. On one hand, I love my country. On the other hand, I see that something has been going wrong for a long time, and I want to turn this river back. If Soviet Russia was the first to legalize abortion, then it is Soviet Russia that must close the lid on this Pandora's box. The communist era has now passed, but an even more terrible time has come. A time when liberal values have changed our mentality. And it makes me very sad that some women in our country consider abortion a form of freedom. I want a woman to think first and foremost that she wants to give birth to her child, and the difficulties she encounters from the state, they will be changed, and there will be support from the state. But that will never happen on its own, believe me. We need people who will bravely step forward, speak out, and perhaps even sacrifice themselves. I, as the leader of the foundation, my team, we have almost 30 people working now. All these people, they are, well, on the front lines. This is also a war. It's a demographic front where we are trying to make our people happy without putting a price on human life.
This is such a horrible thing to me to realize only after I moved to Russia how much Russians truly suffered. People don't talk about it. They don't teach us in our history books. We just know that, well, the Russians were very conveniently our allies at this time. You know, maybe they helped somehow with the war. Good job. Thanks, guys, for being with you. And now you're our new enemy. And it's a very, very sad and unfortunate story all the way through, I guess you would say. But only after I moved to Russia did I really appreciate and understand how much Russians really suffered. So I would like to go back in time a little bit to understand maybe a little bit about how it was that your grandmother suffered. I think this is a first point that I think is interesting to understand, important to understand. Even you get different versions of history, our books, Russia's books. What is the truth? What happened specifically, I think, around abortion during this period of time, from the Bolsheviks to Stalin to now?
Of course, the history of abortion without specifically considering the circumstances and context of where it was legalized really makes no sense at all. Abortions were first legalized in the world in Soviet Russia by a decree from Lenin. And the document was signed by the Minister of Health, who at that time was Semashko. And since then, this plague has started to spread all over the world, presenting abortion as a normal option. Before that, it was a completely different process. Abortions were probably performed for as long as humanity has existed, but it was never the norm. It was condemned, it was a sin, and a woman tried not to remember it. Now, when abortion was legalized as a procedure that just seems to put your pregnancy on pause, that is, even the words termination of pregnancy, abortion, they don't show the essence, which is that it's the murder of a person. And a mental change occurred in all the women of the world. And it's very sad for me that this was born, this idea, this meaning came out of Russia. A great many abortions were performed in Soviet times. If you look back, you can see 50 million abortions. That's a huge number. And the rethinking of this has started to happen literally before my very eyes. When the foundation was created, it was difficult to even say the word abortion when communicating with officials. And our work, and the work of my colleagues, was very much ridiculed. For many years, and even to this day, our most serious opponents have been feminists. These are women who advocate for women's rights at any cost, even if it means placing their own children on the altar. But now a historical shift is taking place, related to events that Russia itself has proposed to the world. Back in the 90s, that's 30 years ago, there were a great many abortions. And there was, at that time, an extremely strong and significant influence from foreign pharmaceutical companies. There was advertising. Doctors received all sorts of preferences from Big Pharma in order to prescribe abortifacient drugs. They could be freely bought in pharmacies, 10 years ago, you could easily order them from online stores to your home. But the serious changes that we can already see, which are tangible, happened 5 years ago, when the first region led this procession against abortions. But, I think it's even incorrect to say against abortions. It's a movement for life. The first region was Mordovia. I worked there with the governor, and we tried to put forward a hypothesis. Who influences a woman? How can this be rethought? What can we offer? And we started working with the medical community. We retrained basically all the doctors who were there who have anything to do with pregnant women, that is, gynecologists, chief physicians, managers, ultrasound specialists, and psychologists. And we saw that on the one hand, these people want to do something to help the woman somehow. On the other hand, these myths that abortion is a woman's right prevented them from taking any serious steps. And sometimes they lacked certain legal documents to rely on. What could they rely on? And we, in order to become their allies as well, started asking them questions. What do you need? And it turned out that with such a broken mentality, thinking that abortion is a woman's right, it's difficult for doctors to come up with new verbal constructs. What to offer a woman who comes to an appointment and says right from the doorway, "I want an abortion." She comes for a service, she may be unhappy if it is not provided to her, and she only has 12 minutes. And we started developing communication scripts. How to have a short conversation with a woman in 10 minutes to show her that you are not alone, that there are people who will help you, and that is happiness. This little box was easy to open. As they say in Russia, we found the key. The first phrase, of course, is the doctor's congratulations to the pregnant woman. Congratulations, you are a mother-to-be. It's very simple and it's very nice. When you're pregnant, you feel unwell and people irritate you a little because your hormonal levels are unstable. And you come and you want to hear what will help you. And maybe you haven't even thought about abortion. You don't know what to think about your pregnancy. And they tell you right from the start, you need an abortion, or what are you going to do? Then you immediately think, really, you can have an abortion. And you return home with this thought, you turn it over in your head, you already address this message to your own mother or to the child's father, to your husband, and everything goes on awry. And if they tell you right away, congratulations, you're a future mother, everything will be fine, don't worry. We miss this participation so much. We so want to be needed by someone at all, especially in this situation for which you will never be prepared. First child, 5th or 10th, and doctors became our allies, sometimes fighting with themselves. We proposed to pass a law that protects women. And it wasn't just an idea, it was an analysis of the situation, because if doctors are for it, then who is against it? There are 2 more opinion leaders on this topic. This is the child's father, spouse, partner. Everyone calls it what they call it. Or mom and dad are this woman's parents. And the woman, of course, is at a loss. She goes to consult with everyone. The parents are, of course, very close. But there is a radical problem here. As a rule, women of reproductive age have parents who had abortions. For a number of reasons, because such a historical process existed, it was the norm, because these women fundamentally did not want to have children. The context in our country was different. And there is this phrase, "I had an abortion, so should you, no one died from it," without specifying that the child dies as a result of the abortion. And young women, well, this 40-year-old young woman, she will also go and consult with her mother. They are like hostages of this situation because it is difficult to resist everyone. And your own mother and the doctor and then the child's father says that you decide for yourself, but you are disarmed, you are alone, you are a woman, you are fragile, and everything falls on your shoulders. Of course it is difficult, just difficult. And so we proposed a law, an amendment to the legislation at the regional level at that time, to prohibit coercing someone into an abortion. By doing so, we were making a statement about this phenomenon. Abortion is not the norm. Coercing someone into it is unacceptable. In our country, you can't coerce someone into suicide. You can't coerce them into taking drugs. And an abortion, is not some kind of pleasure either. It's harmful to your body. It's the killing of your future child. Why are you being coerced into this? By strangers, an employer, a doctor, or even loved ones, the child's father, your own mother, or your own father. Why do you live in such a context? After all, the country has set completely different goals for its deputies, for its people. We support the family, we support children. Our president says that a child is a gift from God. So why does everyone still consider it normal to suggest terminating a pregnancy? It's some kind of perverted consciousness. It's like schizophrenia. And after proposing this law, some, mystical, sacred thing started to happen. Something started to happen at the national level. After proposing this law to the governor, we wrote it in literally one day. One day. It was also an experiment. I turned to my closest friend, a lawyer, a candidate of legal sciences, who works at Moscow State University, and I suggested we draft such a law, especially since I had been talking about it back in 2019. But I probably wasn't sure it would ever get to the point of drafting a law. So Sofia Drobiazko drafted the law for me, and I sent it to the governor, not understanding what would happen after that. I just prayed. Sofia is also a very religious person. We share the same spiritual father. And then things started to happen that would have been unthinkable to believe even 10 years ago. Hearings are taking place. I addressed everyone, saying that all the people in that room would be weighed by God. We are at a historic moment for our country, and it matters who votes and how. Then everyone had their say, and there was one person left. This person was from the Communist Party. We didn't know what he would say, just as we didn't know what any of us would say. It was, a situational decision. Everyone spoke about what they were thinking, how they felt about it. He came out and started saying that no laws were needed, that no action should be taken, because we should look to Europe. And in Europe, the demographics are just fine, and all the measures are already known. These aren't any kind of prohibitions. These are measures where money is given out, it's social security, and children are born there. But that wasn't true, because in Europe, people don't even have third children or even second children anymore. If historically in Russia, people have first and second children, we have a demand in every family for at least 2 children. But in Europe, for a second child to be born, the family has to be paid money for it. And at that moment, of course, my blood was just boiling. I wanted to go up to the podium and say, no, wait, what are you saying? That's not true. But I couldn't go up a second time. Or rather, I could have, but it would have devalued our speech. And then that communist, he said, I'm going to abstain. I'm not going to vote for the law, I'm going to abstain. Yes, my decision is to abstain. He repeated this several times and sat down. And there was this pause. And at that moment, I see, coming from somewhere in the back, the deputy chairman of the government, I think that was his title, or the deputy governor, a very close associate of the governor. And he was a Muslim. He went up to the podium and said, I am a Muslim, and we stand for the protection of life, and we help the Russian Orthodox Church a lot. And we help Natalia Igorevna, we renovate the offices in women's clinics, and they won't let me lie. That's how it is. And the Metropolitan and I nodded our heads, because it was the absolute truth. Indeed, he and the Muslims in Mordovia are our allies. And he said, we are for life. There is no second choice here. Of course, women should not be coerced into having an abortion. And to you, he turned to the communist, I want to say, as one man to another, for a man to abstain, well, that's a bad thing. It was just brilliant. It was just extra. I don't know how to comment on that. First of all, everyone laughed. It broke the tension. I thought that God gives every person a chance, and a person can use that chance like Bulat Ferdinandovich, or not use it like the communist who was there. After all, the communists could have said, yes, maybe in the past communists were for abortions, but now we are against them. But he didn't use it. And you know, that was that very sacred moment when Russia set out on a new path. You could feel it physically. Everyone applauded, everyone relaxed. Thank God, everything happened as it should have, because all the people in the room were for life. It's important to me now that this law is passed at the federal level. Today, we're sitting here in this studio, I've come here, and tomorrow there will be public hearings on the law, the preliminary readings. Before the State Duma, we go through these preliminary readings so that the deputies, the medical community, and public figures can all express what they think about the law. And of course, it's important to me, and I'm very worried, I'll be honest, that everything goes well. But that is in God's hands. Just recently, I was inspecting a women's clinic in Yekaterinburg, and I was looking at what surrounds a pregnant woman there while she's sitting in the waiting room to see the doctor. And I found an ad for sterilization. This wasn't just an ad for hormonal contraception, it was an ad for female sterilization. That's for life. Lord have mercy, it's like we're living in a different country now. This isn't normal. Why is this hanging here? And I asked them to take it down, very politely, but I asked them to take it down. And they did. And you know what was a big revelation for me? That this was an ad from a foreign pharmaceutical company advertising their contraceptives, including ones that make a woman an invalid. What is sterilization? She can never have children again. And what if she changes her mind? She'll never be able to have children ever again. Irreversible processes will take place in her body. I don't want to live in a country like that. I don't want my children to live in a country like that. We have to hope in the Lord God that we will do what is required of us. But of course, we can't do it by ourselves. No, only with God's help.
That was really so much said in such a short period of time. It was really inspiring to hear these beautiful words. I don't know how much you read of things that happen in the West, or you understand what everyday culture is like in the West. You hear things maybe, but, you know, living it is a little bit different. And it's very sad, just on this point of sterilization. This is like a normal conversation that people can have in at least where I come from in America, that somebody said, oh, yes, I sterilized myself. It's like, oh, yeah, you know, oh, like 5 years ago, I did it. And this is a normal thing to say. Maybe you won't say it to just a complete stranger. Maybe it's a joke, but it's still true. This is a first sad thing. I've been at work and I've had men or a woman tell me that they did this to themselves. Like, I don't even want to hear it. I don't want to know it. I'm sad for you. I'm sorry for you, but somehow it's like a badge of honor that you're freed, that you stopped a biological function that you had, that God gave to you. It's just despicable, this one point. We have a decently strong pro-life movement in the United States, but it's very wonderful to actually hear what Ruskaya would say faced with this evil that she is fighting against. And it's in many ways it's a similar thought process, but the ways in which you describe and how you think through these evils and where the focus of the evil is, you know, there's so much focus on the life of the child. And you're a real mother. You know what it is to be a mother. You love your children. You're like, we're not in Africa. We're in Russia, so we should call you a tigress maybe instead of a lioness. But you have the passion. You have the fervor, and that is such a beautiful story that you told. It was really amazing with let's call it a good humor, but very serious at the same time. What he said was absolutely true. Men need to start being men. Fathers need to be fathers. And mothers need to be real mothers and love the children that it is that God is giving them. So I would like to ask if, for one last favor from you, if you would speak and give encouragement to somebody right now, what would you tell somebody right now in America, in Russia, or anywhere in the world, whatever it is that they're going through right now, what would you tell them?
I want to answer that. It seems to me that all people who, like me and like you, are fighting for life on this earth in that small segment of time while we live, they face doubts with burnout, with difficulties, with a loss of faith. I want to address you and your allies in America. Don't look back, go forward. It's absolutely normal that it's not easy for us, and it won't be easy. And until our dying day, it will be a struggle with the forces of darkness, but we are definitely on the right path. The only thing in which we must be strengthened is in faith, in our prayer. If every day, every step we take is for the sake of Christ, then we will win. We will do just a little bit, but the Lord God will do all the rest. I wish for you to never give up, to keep moving forward in the name of life on earth.
100%. Спасибо большое. Спасибо большое.
Слава Богу.
Слава
Спасибо.
Богу. Спасибо. What a woman. And a strong mother. She's absolutely right when she says that we not only need action, but prayer as well. This requires both a human activity and a divine intervention to stop this scourge. We all know demographics are important, but sometimes the term can seem a little too scientific when we're talking about real practical application in this world. If we continue down this path, then we will continue to diminish throughout the world. Our cultures, our traditions, our languages, these things will disappear if we do not take back the attitude that we once had throughout the world to propagate this one. I have said since I first came to Russia that Russians treat children like gold bars, and I absolutely love that about this country. We should continue this work in our own homes and our own families to continue to raise children to make a better place, a better country, and even a better world. Speaking of populations, there are great migrations that are happening throughout the world today from various different countries going to others. We would be amiss in talking about immigration, specifically to Russia, without introducing you to Timur Beslangurov. He is a personal friend of mine. As far as immigration law is concerned, there is nobody better informed, better studied, or better qualified to help you understand than Timur. Let's jump in. Very good to see you here with us today, Timur.
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you. It's my pleasure being here.
The honor is all ours, I assure you. I don't want to come off as a biased person, but you're my attorney, and I'm very grateful for the services that you provided to us and our family, and very, very grateful for that. Probably would have been a mess had we not met.
Again, thank you very much. Yeah, I really appreciate your words and your kindness. Yeah, it's my pleasure to assist.
You run the agency, or not the agency, the attorney at law, Vista Immigration.
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about the services that you offer?
We assist foreigners. I mean, our main focus on foreign clients, so we don't have Russian clients at all. Yeah, so all our clients are foreigners, but when we started back in 2001, we mainly were assisting foreign companies, big international corporations, to bring their mostly white-collar employees, top managers, to work in Russia. And we assisted in getting them work permits and work visas. And then, as you know, historical events happened, yeah, pandemic, then special military operation. And we saw the trend that many foreigners want to come to Russia not as assigned employees to work in the companies, but they want to move to Russia for different reasons. Yeah, permanently to move, not to make some money, yeah, but just because of the traditional values, just because they think and they would like to learn more about Russia, and they believe that Russia is a better place. So now we have mainly our clientele in that direction.
But you're visionary. So you could see things, maybe even like a prophet or something like this, because you could see ahead in of the time that we were at, that there was a great amount of potential here, and you took it very, very seriously. You consulted with the Duma, etc., whatnot, to bring this case to the forefront. Like, no, this is real. This is a thing. You know, it's interesting because Russians read about as much American news as Americans read of Russian news.
Well, no, I don't agree with that. I think we are aware of a lot of information that happens in the West.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is reported in the media is not really representative of life on the ground.
Also, when I speak, like, we'll continue this conversation and I'll answer your question because there are several factors involved on how it all happened, but jump into another topic is when I speak to Russians and when they ask me, okay, what do you do? Some random people, yeah? I say, well, I assist foreigners to move to Russia. And they're like, you kidding me? I mean, somebody's planning to move to Russia. I mean, why they're not staying in the United States or Europe or Australia? I say, well, do you watch Russian news? They're like, yeah, but it's all propaganda. I'm like, well, believe me, but it's true and probably not even showing everything what's going on the West.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's on surface. I mean, it's just a matter of trying to look, I mean, because I'm in this business, kind of, yeah, if you can call it business, yeah. But another factor which is personal to me, yeah, I lived in the United States in 1995. When United States was a different country, yeah, and Russia was also a different country. Just pretty much after collapse of the Soviet Union, yeah, it was pretty bad here in Russia, and I kind of understand many people left Russia. But in my personal opinion, I don't know, maybe I was raised like this, but I like my country a lot. And for me, it's a bit personal because when somebody like you or others come to Russia and they truly like it, enjoy and appreciate, I mean, that's good. For me personally, yeah, I feel kind of good inside, yeah, because I truly believe, okay, many countries are different, and there are many good things in pretty much every country in the world. Yeah, there are bad things, but because I like my country, it gives me like personal, how to say,
Pride.
Yeah, pride, and plus, I mean, I like when you come and you say, Russia is great, yeah. Because it also teaches us Russians for 35 years, I don't know, 30 years, 35 years, yeah, people were thinking, okay, Soviet Union collapsed, people go away, and we lost kind of our belief in ourselves, believe in our country. Yeah, and someone like you coming and saying, listen, I believe that Russia has many great things and some things are better than in United States, it's kind of... what's the word? Enjoyable?
Yeah, fulfilling. Maybe.
Fulfilling.
Yeah.
And this is one factor. Another factor, yeah, because we've been working in this sphere for quite a while, we saw kind of a trend. Yeah, because I was communicating with, I don't know, Australians, Americans, Canadians, and they were saying, listen, things are not getting going to a wrong direction probably in our countries. Yeah, why not look at Russia? And when you walk on the streets of, I don't know, Moscow or other cities, you see that it's a normal country. I mean, I cannot say it's, I mean, for me, it's the best country, yeah? But if you take, like, the general opinion or the general thing which you cannot deny is that Russia is clean, safe. Many things for the last 10 years, I believe, have been done for kids. Yeah, a lot of things have been done to kids. You pretty much go to any restaurant, there would be either a kid's room or something, yeah? The waiter will bring you to your kid pencils, yeah? I don't remember anything like this in the United States.
Let's talk a little bit about this current law. I'm still shocked at how many people are not familiar with this. Obviously, my family, when we arrived in Russia in 2023, this law did not exist. What could you tell our listeners about this new decree from President Putin about this 702?
Yes, so President Putin signed a decree which allows foreign nationals from so-called non-friendly countries. There are 47 non-friendly countries that Russia believes are non-friendly. that any citizen of that country and even any resident of that country. So if you let's say you are Chinese, but you have a green card in the United States, you can also benefit from this decree. And you can immigrate to Russia and obtain 3-year residency in Russia without passing of the Russian language test, which was before, and without quota. So we had the immigration quota, and we still have immigration quota. So this citizens of these 47 countries are now exempt from quota. Yeah, so literally you can pack your bags, sit on a plane, fly to Russia, let's say if you're an American, and apply for a 3-year immigration quota. Within these 3 years, if you learn Russian enough, you can apply for permanent residency, which is a lifetime residency. And then after 5 years, you can apply for Russian citizenship. It's, to a certain extent, I would say it's a revolutionary decree, yeah, because formally, like 1 billion people can move to Russia, yeah,
Right.
theoretically. But there are, certain things that, in my opinion, we need to learn from United States, for example, yeah, is how to promote. Because the statistics show that within this 1 year, a bit more than 1 year passed, a certain number of applicants have applied and moved to Russia. Yeah, and in my opinion, I foresaw, and we discussed it with you and with many other people, that much more people would come. As of now, I think we have some, positive results, but not as much as we expected. And in this opinion, in this matter, I think the way President Trump hypes on certain things, if I may say so, or at least delivers it to the media, is a bit more, let's say, more people know about that, yeah?
Yeah.
Because our president signed the decree, and that's all. Nobody promotes it, except for, I don't know, specialized immigration lawyers.
Yeah, sure.
And Trump says, okay, everybody in Europe or in South Africa, the white people that don't disagree with I don't know, migration, what did you say? Migration crisis or those kind of things, you can move to United States.
Yeah.
Our president doesn't allow himself such kind of things, I would say. Which, if he did, maybe it would be more people coming, yeah, because I still meet people that never heard about this decree from the West, yeah. Although foreign media and even the liberal media wrote about this decree, but maybe because it was liberal media, those people that wanted to come didn't read it, or they read it, but they are not planning to come to Russia.
Yeah. What exactly, because, and in fact, I don't even know with regards to the 702 how somebody starts on that journey. What's the first step in that journey if you wanted to investigate that?
Well, if we speak about paperwork, immigration paperwork, then our advice is to ensure that your papers that you have, like live birth certificates, passports, they're all in order. And when I say in order, this means that at least your names are written in all of your documents the same. Because Russian immigration system is very formal. We don't look into the essence, we look into the formality.
And I want to tell our viewers that, as boring as this piece may sound, this is like so critical. This is the difference between you coming to Russia and staying in Russia, or going to Russia and then having to go back to where you came from to fix documents. I mean, it's not a small deal. So this is very important point to get home, that what Timur is talking about is this document should match this form in some way, right? We have an American system. We're not like Timur said. The essence or the kind of the motivation behind why you're trying to do this doesn't matter here. It has to do with, does this match this? And this is something as simple as marriage. When we get a marriage certificate, when you get married in America, we assume that the wife took the last name unless it's stated otherwise. They don't think like that here. So this is why it's very important to ring up somebody like Timur and be like, hey, can you check our documents against the Russian system? Is that correct?
Yeah, it's absolutely correct. Yeah, this example that you made about the marriage, yeah, the way the law is written, and again, coming back to the Russian law, the way the decree is written is that foreign national that wants to immigrate to Russia based on this decree should go to the embassy, have an interview, sign a paper saying that he complies with the Russian traditional values, get a special type of visa, which is called a private visa, arrive based on this visa, and then apply for 3-year residency. But in practice, you can come on any type of visa.
Okay.
For Europe, for 64 countries in the world, there is electronic visa where you don't even show to the embassy. They send you a visa on your email.
Okay.
You can apply for temporary residency based on the decree, even on that visa.
On the e-visa?
Yeah.
So you can just do it straight up online?
Yeah, for Americans, you can get... No, for the visa itself, then you come to Russia and you apply in Russia for the temporary residency.
I see.
By the law, you can actually also apply for the 3-year residency in the embassy. But we haven't had such cases, and I haven't heard of anyone doing it at the Russian consulate. Technically, it's possible, but again, now people are coming on tourist visas, on electronic tourist visas, and they are accepted, which is, in my opinion, is good.
Yeah. Streamlines the process. Yeah.
At least
you're not going to go back and forth to the Russian embassy. You know.
Yeah, as they say, sometimes the strictness of the Russian laws are outbalanced by
the flexibility.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you believe are the different kinds of people, just at a high level at first? What kind of people do you think will have the best success in Russia?
Highly qualified specialists are needed, but we cannot artificially make them come and then try to find for employer on their own. And that's unfortunately what happens.
It's reality.
It's the reality, yeah. You read in the news, Russia needs, especially after special military operation, like it was said that many IT specialists from Russia moved to another countries. And there was some, I don't know, in the media article saying Russia lacks 1 million of IT specialists. Okay, I'm thinking, wow, cool. We need to invite more IT specialists. Okay, I personally have, I don't know, maybe 30 resumes of foreign IT specialists that contacted me. I mean, we're not a headhunting agency. We're not a HR agency. Yeah. But I don't know any one of them being employed. You, I do know.
Yes.
Yeah, but all the rest, I mean, they were unable to find employment. So my question is, so does Russia need the IT specialists or they don't? Or we don't? So it's a tough question, yeah, because the biggest problem is Russian language.
Yes.
I think the biggest issue with Russian immigration is not the issue, but the biggest hurdle is knowledge of the Russian language. Yeah, because without Russian language, yeah, you probably will. It will be very difficult to find an employer that will hire an additional translator to you. I don't know, and some other assistants. Yeah, to be able to place you in that vacancy. Yeah, and the foreign companies, big multinational corporations, they did that. And Russian companies, I don't think they in bulk tend to do it. So from my personal experience, I like farmers. For me, farmers are entrepreneurs, businessmen, and they don't need employer, and they don't need even Russian language. Okay, it's better if they speak Russian language, but we have cases when, I mean, even without Russian language, they can successfully build their future in Russia.
But as far as regions are concerned, where do you feel like the best kinds of regions are for farmers in Russia?
Russia has, I think, 3 or 4 different types of climates. Yeah. So from the places that I visit, okay, we all know Krasnodar region, yeah, which is on the south, and they produce most amount of wheat. There are other regions which have like this black soil. But when that doesn't mean that in some of the regions where I went to, I was surprised that, I mean, you can grow pretty much same crops. It just the matter of how many cuts you get.
Yes. Sure.
For example, I mean, I never knew that you can grow watermelons in Nizhny Novgorod region. Yeah,
Sure.
until a Canadian farmer came and I don't know, grew 80 watermelons in a summer on his garden. Yeah, it's just a matter. Okay, they just ripe 1 month later. I think that pretty much every region has the potential for cattle farming. Especially if we speak about Black Angus or those breeds that are resistant to cold weather. Yeah, because they don't need like ideal field. They just need pasture. Yeah, they need grass. Sometimes they don't even need shelter. Yeah, and I mean, I lived in South Dakota and we had 300 cattle there. I think it was Black Angus. I don't remember the actual breed, but the weather there was colder than anywhere I've been to Russia. Honestly. Yeah. I think people that tend more into business, businessmen, that I don't know, have funds and ideas, sufficient funds. Or I don't know, pensioners, just to come and enjoy life.
Yeah.
I mean, big families, yes, but again, it's always a matter of we would like to have more big families, for many reasons, obvious reasons, for their benefit and for Russia's benefit, but it's a matter of Russian language. In order to be able to find proper employment. If you are not an entrepreneur and a businessman,
and I'm constantly impressed for Western foreigners specifically who come, even again, if you don't speak Russian, it's just so much bigger if you can learn to speak the language. Like, I'm still learning the language. I can somewhat manageable. I can kind of get around and whatnot. It's still difficult, still challenging, but it's still, even then, people, this is the funniest thing, I think, when I think it was the third day that I visited in February of 2023, that I was walking with you down the street and I'm like, hey, Timur, like, what? I'll never forget this conversation. I was like, I really thought that I would get some more pushback, like maybe somebody would shout at me on the street, America's the reason for our problems and whatnot. And you're like, what are you talking about? We love Americans. We just hate your government. And I was like, well, I do too. I guess that means we can be friends. That's cool. Russians really have an affinity for Westerners, but even particularly for Americans, it's very nice.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I can speak for myself, not that I was living in America, but in general, I think Russians are quite kind and forgiving people.
Really appreciate your time, Timur, always. I know you're a really, really super busy guy all the time. So I appreciate the time you came into the studio to talk with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, Eddie. It was my pleasure.
Timur is definitely one of the best immigration attorneys there and knows the law on immigration like the back of his hand, as even many other law firms will tell you here in Moscow. I certainly believe that the best categories of people here in Russia are definitely going to be in the IT industry, in the entrepreneur industry, as well as Timur said, in the farming industry. But there are many different kinds of opportunities. He is definitely somebody that you would want to connect with on his own channels to discuss what opportunities are reasonable here in Russia for foreigners and expats.
Wow, what a great lineup that was.
It really was.
I mean, just it hits you from one end and to the other. And then we talked about immigration. But anyway, I have to ask, what was your favorite topic?
I think actually my favorite interviewee was Natalia Moskvitina. I'm just tremendously impressed with her. She has a fantastic backstory. She's very spiritual. She's extraordinarily committed to her cause. For a woman to be able to say that she has 9,200 children, that's, and really believe that. I mean, I've talked to her about this several times, and she's pretty serious about that. And more power to her. So I think it's a tremendous cause. I think it's really tremendous work that she's has done and continues to do. And so I really congratulate her on that and encourage her to keep going.
And extremely courageous at heart
Yeah.
to do the work that she's doing. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Tigress. Yeah, for sure. How about you, Eddie?
You know, Chris Helali. Wow. I mean, just if he were, if I were a student sitting at a lecture and he were giving, I think I could listen to him for hours. He would just go on, and he makes his points just as concisely and as simply put and well understood as can be. And it's just amazing. And I asked Chris, I was like, where do you get all this energy? Because he just keeps going on and on and on.
Well, and you can't, like literally one day he's in Brazil and then he's in, Russia, and then he's in Europe and
Another continent.
yeah, Saudi, what
You told me about Brazil, then Iran, then Venezuela, and
it's amazing.
Russia.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Amazing.
Incredible.
Absolutely amazing. Well, and we shouldn't forget about that. That was ridiculously hard interview to cut.
It was.
People should realize that when we bring these interviews to you, these are super condensed versions of the actual interview that took place, because otherwise this show would be 3 or 4 hours. So people who are already thinking an hour and a half, 2 hours is long. Oh, there's a lot more where that came from.
Exactly.
We will be releasing absolutely Chris Helali's full unedited interview so that you could actually watch it for yourself. We had to even remove whole topics because there was just not enough time.
And so if you want a deeper dive into the topics that Chris was talking about, stay tuned for that full-length interview, because believe me, he's going to go into precise detail, and you will completely understand the picture once he's finished.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very interesting stuff. And we shouldn't forget also Timur. Timur has been invaluable to many, many people who have come here to Russia. He has a tremendous grasp on the law, and as well as very good connections with many, many people here in Russia to be able to connect and help entrepreneurs, farmers, and other kinds of people. So he's definitely worth checking out as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I 100%. I've known Timur for a few years now, and he's been a tremendous help to me as well. And if you're thinking of wanting to come to Russia for whatever reason, and you just want a little bit more information, please contact Timur.
100%. Well, so concludes another episode of Russia Up Close.
Not one in the can.
That's it. We're very glad that you joined us today. Please definitely give us some feedback. We started the show off pretty heavy at the beginning, talking about the situation that exists in the world. Very curious. It's been 2 years since I've been back. You've been back more recently. But I encourage you in the comments to please tell us if you're in the States or wherever you might be on the globe, where you're from, and how you feel things are going on in your state, in your country.
Yeah, definitely. Tell us where you're watching from.
For sure. Thank you very much. Take care. До свидания.